The Canadian housing crisis refers to the current shortage of affordable housing and rising housing prices, particularly in urban areas such as Toronto and Vancouver. The crisis has been fueled by factors such as increased demand, limited supply, and government policies. The result has been an increase in homelessness and housing insecurity, and a disproportionate impact on marginalized communities. Understanding the Canadian housing crisis is important because it has far-reaching social and economic implications. The lack of affordable housing affects not only the individuals and families struggling to find a place to live, but also impacts the wider community through increased homelessness and housing insecurity. The crisis also has implications for the economy, as it affects the stability of the housing market and the ability of individuals to access home ownership, which is often seen as a key aspect of personal and financial stability. Additionally, addressing the crisis requires a comprehensive understanding of its causes and potential solutions. The Canadian housing market has experienced steady growth over the past several decades, with prices and demand for housing increasing in most regions across the country. In recent years, the market has been particularly impacted by low interest rates, increased immigration, and a growing economy, leading to increased demand and upward pressure on housing prices. However, the current housing crisis can also be seen as the result of longer-term trends and patterns, including limited investment in affordable housing and a failure to keep pace with population growth, particularly in urban areas. Some trends and patterns leading up to the Canadian housing crisis include overvaluation of property prices. Housing prices in some regions, particularly in urban areas like Toronto and Vancouver, have been increasing at a faster rate than household income, making it difficult for many people to afford a home. Secondly, limited investment in affordable housing. Despite the need for more affordable housing options, there has been limited investment in this sector, leading to a shortage of affordable housing options. Also, insufficient supply of new housing units. The construction of new housing units has not kept pace with population growth, particularly in urban areas, contributing to the shortage of affordable housing. Insufficient supply of new housing units. The construction of new housing units has not kept pace with population growth, particularly in urban areas, contributing to the shortage of affordable housing. Most importantly, increase in demand for housing. Factors such as low interest rates, immigration, and a growing economy have led to an increase in demand for housing, further exacerbating the crisis. Government policies, such as zoning regulations, have limited the development of new housing units and made it more difficult for people to find affordable housing. Factors contributing to the crisis: lack of affordable housing options, overvaluation of property prices, increased demand for housing, and insufficient supply of new housing units. To elaborate further, increased demand for housing refers to a rise in the number of people looking for a place to live, which in turn drives up housing prices. The demand for housing in Canada has been fueled by several factors, including low interest rates, immigration, and a growing economy. This increased demand has put upward pressure on housing prices, making it difficult for many people to find an affordable place to live, particularly in urban areas where supply is limited. The result has been a shortage of affordable housing options and an increase in homelessness and housing insecurity. The Canadian housing crisis has significant economic and social implications, including increased poverty. High housing prices and a shortage of affordable housing options can lead to poverty, particularly for low and moderate income households. Reduced economic growth. The high cost of housing can make it difficult for people to save and invest, which can reduce economic growth and limit long-term prosperity. Increased inequality. The housing crisis exacerbates existing inequalities, particularly for marginalized and vulnerable populations, such as Indigenous peoples, low-income households, and seniors. Decreased quality of life. Homelessness and housing insecurity can have a negative impact on health, well-being, and social stability, leading to increased costs for healthcare, social services, and law enforcement. Strained public services. The housing crisis puts pressure on public services, such as healthcare and social services, as more people struggle to find a safe and affordable place to live. The economic and social implications of the Canadian housing crisis highlight the need for effective policy solutions to address this complex and pressing issue. The Canadian housing crisis has a disproportionate impact on marginalized communities, including Indigenous peoples, low-income households, people with disabilities, and seniors. These communities are particularly vulnerable to the lack of affordable housing options and are more likely to experience homelessness and housing insecurity. This is due to a variety of factors, including poverty, discrimination, limited access to employment opportunities, and a lack of social support. The impact of the housing crisis on marginalized communities exacerbates existing inequalities and has serious consequences for their health, well-being, and stability. Addressing the disproportionate impact of the housing crisis on marginalized communities will require a comprehensive and inclusive approach that addresses the root causes of housing insecurity and homelessness. Affordable housing initiatives and policies are programs and regulations aimed at increasing the supply of affordable housing and improving access to safe and stable housing for low and moderate-income households. Some examples of affordable housing initiatives and policies include construction incentives, tax credits, grants, and other financial incentives for developers and builders to create more affordable housing units. Zoning reform, changes to local zoning regulations to allow for the construction of more multi-unit dwellings, such as apartments and townhouses, in urban areas. Rent control, regulations that limit rent increases, making it easier for tenants to afford their homes. Affordable housing trust funds, public funds dedicated to supporting the development of affordable housing. Community land trusts, non-profit organizations that acquire and hold land in trust for the purpose of building and preserving affordable housing. Affordable housing tax credits for low-income households to help with the cost of rent. Homeownership assistance, programs that help low-income households purchase a home, such as down payment assistance and mortgage subsidies. These are just a few examples of the affordable housing initiatives and policies that can help address the housing crisis in Canada. To be effective, these initiatives and policies must be part of a comprehensive and coordinated approach that takes into account the complex and interrelated nature of the housing crisis. Increasing the supply of housing units is one way to address the Canadian housing crisis. This can be achieved through several different strategies, including encouraging new construction, incentivizing developers and builders to construct new housing units through tax credits, grants, and other financial incentives. Streamlining the building process, reducing the time and cost of getting approvals and permits for new housing construction to make it easier for developers to build. Increasing density, allowing for the construction of more multi-unit dwellings, such as apartments and townhouses, in urban areas to increase the overall supply of housing units. Supporting affordable housing initiatives, providing funding and support for non-profit organizations and community-based initiatives that aim to increase the supply of affordable housing. Converting underutilized properties, such as unused commercial spaces, into housing units. These are some ways to increase the supply of housing units in Canada, but to be effective, these strategies must be part of a comprehensive and coordinated approach that takes into account the complex and interrelated nature of the housing crisis. Thanks for watching our video. If you like the content, please subscribe to our channel The Global Highlights, where you will get 360-degree perspective of all global affairs.